That could have been fucking terrible.
The entire podcast with no
intro.
Corby.
This is a horrible intro. Matt's already said something vaguely suggestive. I want to continue that suggestive line. Corby's muted himself, and Tom is suffering.
In honor of
Welcome to Fact versus Fiction.
It's a standard Wednesday.
I was going to say, this is a Wednesday, as some people call it.
Wednesday.
This isn't just any Wednesday, guys.
This is an M&S Wednesday.
International Podcast Day.
It is. Are we recording, Corby?
We are now.
Good. Right.
I've
Let's
unmuted
go.
myself, so...
Hello.
Wet me into your eardrum
Jeez,
like some
I'm
sort of
sorry,
podcast
what?
Angel.
I think Matt just coughed into my ear to wake me up. What the fuck was that?
That was me going hello. Hello, everybody, you wonderful listeners, and welcome to Fact vs. Fiction, coming at you live on International Podcast Day that we only found out about 2 hours before recording. This won't even come out on International Podcast Day. What are we doing?
Live on International Podcast Day. That's the line.
6 weeks before after it.
Coming at you live from 6 weeks in the past, it's your boys.
I am your host this week, Matt, and as always, I'm joined by my ever stalwart comrade, John, in the Fact Wars.
I am stalwart. I'm just kind of there in the back, silently brooding.
Yeah, he kills men.
No.
And obviously the two Toms, Corby.
What up? It's your fiction boy here to poke fun at life.
and other Tom.
Hey up. Fiction provides great escapism because the terrors of life are too hard to face sometimes.
I had to go outside today.
Oh, fucking boy. Let me tell you about the fear of outside. Let me tell you about agoraphobia.
To be fair, there has been a rise in the midge population where I live.
You've got a problem with... Did you say midgets, Tom?
No, he said midgie. I thought he said midget for a second.
As in-
What?
As in slang term for mosquito.
The small blood-sucking fly.
There's been a rise in the midget population around me.
They've all grown up.
It's been 3 minutes of
Wait a minute, these were just toddlers.
It's been 3 minutes and we've already committed a hate crime. Where is the fact of fiction, everybody?
Oh, Corby, that was brilliant.
You set it up for me, what can I say?
Oh my God.
Oh, God.
With every week, we usually start with a hypothetical. Does anybody have a hypothetical? I do have a weird question.
I'm happy to go with the weird question. What is a hypothetical anyway?
That's...
No, stop.
The hypothetical.
Put Pandora's box down, Tom. Stop it.
Okay, my weird question stemmed from binge watching Primeval. Somehow, I had a shower thought the other day. How did Stegosaurus?
In the shower.
No, but obviously, it was after this. It's not important what I was doing when I was showering, John.
Just
Okay?
lathering up to the Primeval
These are some steamy dinosaurs, damn.
Matt's shower playlist comprises of the Primeval theme and Jurassic Park on loop.
Have you ever watched the Jurassic Park theme? It's amazing.
No.
I've heard.
Just wiping yourself down to the trumpets and orchestral music. Anyway, my random shower thought and thus question is, how did Stegosaurus have sex? Because when you think of a Stegosaurus, what do you think of?
I think of the Thagomizer.
Oh, such a good name for a weapon.
That is a good one. I'm glad you remembered that. Well, that's a good one. I like that one.
That little pause just there definitely wasn't me desperately trying to remember the name for it.
That's fair. It's such a random term that you never use except when you're talking about Stegosaurus.
They had to make up a term for it, which is amazing.
Did you know the origin of Thagomizer comes from like a New York Times comic of a paleontologist who's just fumbling his way through a lecture?
That's brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant.
And that's just then been entered into the popular scientific vernacular for dinosaurs.
Big words there, Tom.
Oh, God, it's Gary Larson who did it. Yeah,
the biggest words I'll ever use.
Can we just appreciate the word vernacular?
Vernacular is
Scientific.
mwah.
Even if it does sound like a sex thing.
I don't
Oh,
think
you got
we
me
want
right
to
in
do
the
that
vernacular.
tonight.
I don't want to have to do Stegosaurus sex this early in the evening.
Yeah.
It's nearly half
Look,
past
like,
8.
just-
That's prime
I'm
time
not-
for thinking about Stegosaurus vernacular.
I'm not asking anyone to imagine this, but think about it in the sense that they have all those plates down their back. How does it work?
I wonder if it's like Wales, where you have to get another one to prop you up. Like the ultimate wingman. It's just like, yeah.
It's true they
I
are
need to
covered in
rebound
spikes.
off you into... No.
They always need to use protection.
Maybe they just join at the Fagamizer, and that's how they produce eggs.
Oh, God. It's like Avatar.
It's all about the Fagamizer, baby.
Or get that Fagamizer in my vernacular.
It's not the size of the Fagamizer. It's the way you use it.
Christ, we're all too horny.
I'm gonna be
Welcome to
real.
Activist Fiction, where we're horny for dinosaurs 24/7.
Yeah, that's
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, that's fair.
I hate to ask at this point, but what's everyone's favourite dinosaur?
Fucking hell. You've thrown me. I
I've
can't
always
think.
been a big fan of Carnotaurus.
Ooh,
Choice.
Carnotaurus is cool.
Good boy.
Oh, there's the giant one with claw hands.
Spinosaurus?
It's a bee, I believe.
Not Spinosaurus. It's literally got claw hands, and it's one of the only theropod vegetarians of herbivores.
Actually,
Vegetarians, the
there
politically
is a-
correct
there
term
is
for
an
herbivores.
Let's have a look.
Hang on.
Oh, the animal had the longest claws of all time.
I've always been a fan of the Dilophosaurus.
Therizinosaurus?
Yes, Therizinosaurus, yeah.
Nicknamed the Scythe Lizard? That's fair.
I think so.
That's pretty bitchin'.
Yes, definitely that
The
one.
problem is,
Look at them
it's threatening,
claws.
it's threatening. It's threatening posture. This looks like a slightly pissed off chicken with claws.
Well, that's all dinosaurs are.
That's just
Yeah.
dinosaurs.
That's just dinosaurs,
That's the
baby.
dinosaurs.
Tom, what's your favourite?
I always liked. Which Tom was that directed at?
I mean, Corby's the Corby on
Corby.
the
Tom,
recording.
Stop. Get in the program, Tom.
Stop it, Tom.
Yeah.
You're confusing me with Tom.
Yeah, Dilophosaurus is one that I've always been like,
Spit McGee.
which is the one from Jurassic Park which kills Nedry. In case anyone needs a reminder. Also, spoilers for Jurassic Park, a movie that came out over 20 years ago.
How could you, Tom? I haven't read the book.
The dinosaurs escape.
Spoilers. They actually did spare quite a bit of expense,
All the expense. My God.
Spare no expense. It's just
mainly on the health and safety features.
I spent all the money on this amber stuff. Do you know how much amber costs?
I mean,
Bullshit.
all I know is that John Hammond is a necromancer. The parallels are there. He has his staff of power. He raises things from the dead with science, which we don't understand. Therefore,
alive.
magic. Boom. Corby, what's your favourite dinosaur?
I just like velociraptors because I imagine commanding them in a pack.
You've been watching far too much
Velociraptors.
Jurassic World.
I haven't
thing
actually
with
seen Jurassic
velociraptors,
World. I just thought it was a cool thing for a druid to do.
Oh,
Dilophosaurus are a lot bigger than I thought they were.
Watch
Yeah,
out
pretty
watch out for our next D&D campaign where I play the dinosaur druid.
Dilophosaurus
really good.
also have none of the cool features that it has in the Jurassic Park movie in real
Yeah.
life. That was all creative license.
What the shit?
They don't have the big thrill. They don't have the spitting poison.
Lame. Anyway,
but I
lest
say-
we get drowned in dinosaur facts
And
I'm
fetishes.
quite a fan of
and
True
fetishes. John, I believe you are going to kick off this fact week this week. Why are you staring like somebody just stole your money?
I only hate the way he's
Wait,
filming right
wait.
now because
Why
it
would
looks like the POV what she sees meme.
It kind of does a bit. I'm adjusting the camera so my voice is loud, so I didn't last recording. I was quiet. Anyway, yeah. Today I'm going to talk about the Olympics. Funnily enough, I believe it was the I'm going to talk specifically about I think it was the third Olympiad. Basically, after it got basically brought back into.
So not the third Olympics.
Not the very third.
No, not the third one ever. The third one since it got like
rebranded.
Because it died. It stopped happening for thousands of years, and then basically we thought we'd rediscover. Oh, that sounds cool. We'll hold the first one at Athens, and then I believe the second one was France, and then the third one was meant to be in Chicago in 1904.
Oh.
Ah.
Now, the reason it wasn't in Chicago in 1904 was because St. Louis couldn't get their fingers out their arse, to be bluntly honest.
What did St. Louis do to you?
Oh, well, many things.
He was no saint.
Wouldn't take his fingers out his ass, apparently.
Anyway, but no, basically, the St. Louis was supposed to have a massive festival organisation happening in 1903, the year before, for the 100th anniversary of the Louisiana Purchase.
Oh, yeah.
From 1803. And they were like, whoa, look at this, we've got land, yay! Unfortunately, they couldn't get their shit together in time, so they had to push back the 100th anniversary to 1904. Yeah.
But then it's
no.
not 100 years.
It doesn't matter, it's fine.
Something doesn't matter.
Mathematically speaking.
Or maybe that's accounting for the new numbers we invented a few episodes ago.
Yes.
Oh, God. No, it was... Well, that is a... Oh, yeah, well, actually, there were some stupid numbers will come out later. But no, basically this meant that the Olympics and this massive Louisiana Purchase celebration would have been happening at pretty much the same time of year.
So they didn't want it to clash, or they wanted it to clash?
They didn't want it to clash
Right.
because, so basically there was terse negotiations going on. Right, you cancel your thing. No, you cancel your thing. You cancel your thing. We're both going to lose money. No, fuck you. And basically ended
Such an
with
American-
St. Louis.
And not to, throw shade, that's such an American thing to try and cancel the fucking long-running thing at the Olympics.
Well, to be fair, it wasn't long running at this point. It was the third one.
Third one back after a
Only the
break.
third one.
Yeah, exactly. Back after a
It's a
It's still got more of a
Hiatus.
legacy behind it than fucking Chicago.
Oh no, exactly. But then what
So
happened?
why is
was,
Chicago celebrating the Louisiana Purchase?
no, they're not. It's just that it would compete with it, so they both had audiences that
Oh,
had to decide between the two events. Why would Chicago? Oh, Jesus.
I was just thinking, but Chicago and Louisiana are at the other ends of the country.
Not really.
Wait, I'm thinking of Detroit.
They're all in the same column.
Yeah,
We're gonna get some angry
I think the bit up north is also part of the.
We're gonna get some
Chicago's
angry
in
comments
Illinois.
from Chicagoans that you just called their city Detroit.
Same place.
Yeah, that is akin to saying some.
I
horrible
love
shit.
Detroit
That's
the
not good.
musical.
I like the accurate portrayal of Detroit in RoboCop because it feels like probably how it is.
Yeah.
Anyway, including the acid mutants.
What do you mean? RoboCop's a documentary.
Yeah, pretty much. But what happened with the St. Louis thing as well was because for some reason they were also having the World's Fair in St. Louis.
Oh, for
So
fuck's sake.
basically, it's the anniversary of the Louisiana Purchase, it's the World's Fair, and it's the Olympics, which basically got folded into a subsection of the World's Fair.
It's the fucking
It was
Triforce
awful.
of idiocy.
I'm not gonna lie, this legit sounds like a Civ game.
It
It
really
is.
does.
Oh god, it does. That bastard's gone full culture. So needless to say, this started off quite badly, and lots of people were trying to. Well, initially it was going to be like a massive international event, but I think there was in total 651 athletes competed. I think 60-something of these weren't Americans.
It's an all-American Olympics, boys.
Yeah, pretty much.
Jog on down
here we
from
go,
the
here we
World's
go.
Fair.
Here's the number. Only 62 of the 651 athletes who completed came from outside North America.
Bloody hell.
And I think only of those ones, only about 14 nations sent anyone. So it was not good.
Do you have any stats on what the previous two were in terms of that kind of disparate? Was there the same disparagement of athletes as before, or is it just because America?
It was
well,
exactly the same.
to be fair,
Masses
this
of
was
Americans
this,
and just a few others.
like the Paris Olympics was bigger just because that was the 1900 one, because that had 997 athletes. Great, and that let's see, that was obviously a lot better because it's based in Europe, so you've got a lot more people from various countries that could just get there without having to hop on a bloody boat. Also, the problem was the 1904 Olympics were also kind of in the middle of the Russo-Japanese War, so they didn't really send that many people.
Don't worry about that.
What? Okay, yeah, there's a Russian guy to mention, but yeah, so it was quite difficult to get to St. Louis, which is, well, if you look on a map, it's
Isn't it up a river?
well, most cities are. But anyway, sorry.
Touche, John. Touche.
But St. Louis is basically just right of smack bang middle of the United States. So it's not as if you can just get a ship there. You have to get a ship there and then find a way there, which is what basically happened to one competitor later on. But yeah, it's right smack bang the border of Missouri and Illinois, which is which is basically south to the left a bit of Chicago. If you think of that.
Gotcha. Not to be confused with Detroit.
Yeah. It's interesting. This Olympics was the first Olympics to introduce the gold, silver, and bronze medals.
Oh, what were they doing before that?
I assume they just gave you
Winner
like
and
a big
losers
first sticker.
Bunch of great
The I tried sticker.
You get the smiley sticker.
change
You get the failure
weathers.
sticker.
Well, wasn't it they just used to give, or like in ye olde Olympics, they used to get the laurel wreath and no one else got anything. Just the winner got the wreath and everyone else was like, yeah, you lost. Sucks to be you, bitch.
Was it a nice, crisp high five?
Oh, you know it was.
But yeah, it was it wasn't the best place to be, to honestly. It wasn't fantastic. Everyone here would have felt horribly uncomfortable there, simply because it was during the World's Fair, which they were doing a massive "ho-ho, isn't colonialism great" thing. It was not really. Yeah, it wasn't great.
Yeah,
Like,
that was still a
for
thing.
instance, they had. Yeah.
I was going to ask what went on at the
Yeah, here we
World's
go.
Fair because it's not something I actually know about. All I know is it
it's-
existed.
Does it
Just
still exist
celebrate.
today? Or is it kind of...
I've no
I
idea.
believe so. I believe in Spider-Man 1, they're at the World's Fair when the Green Goblin attacks.
Is Spider-Man
and kills
1 a
the-
good reference?
Isn't bloody
Yeah.
isn't Iron Man another World's Fair?
My lens
At
through
some point.
everything. They have the Stark Expo in the Iron Man movie.
There's the
But
World
there might be the World's
Expo.
Fair as well.
It's probably become the World Expo.
There's the World Expo, which is going to be in,
Might be the same thing.
which is going to I think that's basically it renamed. Is now was going to be held in Dubai, but is it's COVID because it's COVID. Anyway, but yes. But the problem was, the World's Fair also it doubled down on the racism and white supremacism and had so-called anthropology days, which was
Oh, no.
not the best.
Is this... Did they have a couple of phrenologists around?
Probably, but this was like they got groups of what they called savages, which were people from various countries that weren't white, and basically made them compete in various athletic feats. And these athletic feats were among them was greased pole climbs, and like, watch them fail. Ethnic dancing. I don't know what it says. Ethnic quotation mark dancing. Not good. Not good. And
They
and just
can't waltz, thus it's not dance.
and mudslinging, which was all lovely and pleasant.
This all sounds like the start to a porno.
Porn are you watching?
All of it?
Specifically the mudslinging.
I was going to say.
Basically,
This is what I watch porn for. Ethnic dancing.
Yeah, I realised the middle one didn't work with that.
No. But the funny thing is, Pierre de Coubertin, who was the guy who was basically who founded the International Olympic Committee, he was the guy who basically said, "No, St. Louis can have it. Stop arguing, Christ." He basically he didn't like what was going on with that. There's a quote from him here, which is, "As for that outrageous charade, it will of course lose its appeal when black men, red men, and yellow men learn to run, jump, and throw, and leave the white men behind them." So he did kind of get that prescient with that, which is quite nice for 1904.
I'm not sure if that was with, ending racism in mind. That just makes it sound like he's worried that they're going to outdo the whites.
No, he's basically just saying people stop laughing when that happens. But
okay.
He disapproved of that.
I'm not gonna lie because
they literally.
I also interpreted that in like we're not gonna laugh when
The
they take
term
over.
used didn't help.
No, it could be interpreted in multiple ways. He didn't seem like a horrible guy compared to considering everyone else just point to laugh. At
compared to everybody at the time, he comes off as quite well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
He's
a little confused, but he's got the spirit.
But the issue was they had more than that in the world. So they had like there was an actual Boer War reconstruction because the Boer War just ended.
Oh shit!
And they got 600 men with like blank firing rifles and all kinds of stuff from both sides to reenact the battle for them.
Jeez.
This sounds like
all of the men involved were actual soldiers in the fight.
You're kidding? Was this like part of the Olympics or the World Fair?
This is part of the World's Fair.
Sounds like some kind of scam to get the Boer War going again.
We need a third Boer War.
No, we don't.
No, there was the Olympics was kind of like part of the World's Fair. It's like, look, we got this too over in this corner. There's
It's
the
like
Olympics.
a subcategory.
Which seems so weird now, but that's. There was. There was like 94 different events in 17 disciplines. There was a lot of the typical stuff that we have nowadays, but they also had a tug of war event, which I really want to see back again.
Ooh,
I want to see
nice.
an Olympic tug of war, like which countries can get the biggest bastards and put them either side of a rope.
As long as it's over like a body of water, so that the losing side gets pulled in.
They get
fire.
That'll really fight it up.
The losing side
I'll
gets
meet you in the middle. We've got a burning lake.
I think lava is.
You're not eating tonight unless you win.
Tug of war over a volcano.
Here we go. But they basically called these things, unfortunately, the World's Fair, the Anthropology Days, they called them at the time human zoos, which just shows how little feeling they had. And there was
that's horrible.
1,400 indigenous people from pretty much across the world.
Yeah, that ain't kosher.
In exhibits in their natural habitats, which is just fucking. Obviously, and obviously they weren't like. I don't think they were forced to stay there. I think they were just paid, obviously, pretty damn poorly and just like humiliated. But what can you do? Anyway, as well as these events, what I'm mainly focusing on today is the marathon.
Oh my god! I think I know this one.
You might know parts of it, definitely. You might know the whole story, which is going to be entertaining to say the least. I will mention also that this was the first ever Olympics with boxing in, which is quite cool.
Oh, nice.
I like that. Yeah, a little bit of that. But that's about it. Anyway, 1904 Olympics. Topic, where's my phone? Here. It was. Yeah, it was. Back then, they didn't really have They didn't have the stand distance at 26 miles, so they just thought, let's say 25, that'll be good. This got a route about 25 miles. And, well, a lot of them were like, most of the competitors were American. Most of them were American. We had, so there was, here we go, John Lawden, he was, well, we'll get to him. Sorry.
That's sinister.
Sorry, not him. Fred Laws, who I don't like. Fred Laws is the one I don't like. John Lawden didn't know anything around. Thomas Hicks. These are all Americans, but they did have various other people involved too. There was a Cuban man who was absolutely fantastic. Let's see what he's basically going to be the hero of the story, I think. Yeah, we'll get to him in a bit. I'll get also to the Cuban guy later, who I really, really enjoy. There were two people who were.
I think enjoy is the wrong word to use there.
I really enjoy this Cuban man.
No, I appreciate him for what he is. And
that's a better way of phrasing it.
I'll be creepy phrasing all the time. Keep stalling me. I'll just
Isn't that what Ash says about the xenomorph in Alien?
Yeah.
I enjoy what he is and what he does.
I enjoy its purity.
Oh God, he does. Oh, fuck. No. Anyway. Two runners who signed up to the marathon because they didn't have very many people for the marathon. They kept on having to get. They would take pretty much anyone because they had a couple dozen of Americans and that's about it. And occasionally, this Cuban guy turned up. Not really many other people. So 2 people who were part of the Second Boer War demonstration, so former soldiers.
Is it a reenactment? Guess it's a reenactment.
Technically, because no one died, I think.
What if they were
and-
mortal enemies on each side and they actually saw each other? Also, I love the idea that they finished the reenactment and just popped on down to the marathon start.
No, well,
Still
basically,
geared up.
'cause They literally, well, kind of, but there were 2 South Africans who were of the Tswana people, who were called Len Tonyane. Sorry if I pronounced this wrong. Also just known as Len Town, and Jan Matiani. They basically thought, well, we're here anyway for the Boer War thing. Might as well sign up for this. It'll be a laugh. And they seem to have the history books seem to point out that they might have actually run this barefoot,
Oh god.
which is horrific. When I get onto what actually the marathon was like, because you see this, it was horrific conditions for a marathon because it was horribly dusty. Like, I mean, most of the roads they picked for this were centimeters of dust, and the cars driving alongside them, so just kicking up horrible dust into their face, breathing in. It's probably about 32 degrees to running, which is damn hot.
Fucking hell.
That's Celsius.
What's that in Fahrenheit for Americans?
That's about 100, I think.
About 100, yeah, that's the thing. It's about 100 because it says here because there's this guy called Dr. Bill Roberts who is current marathon director who basically says about the right temperature for a marathon to run. About ideal conditions is about 45 to 50 Fahrenheit.
So about what? 15 degrees? 12 degrees?
I'm googling that. About 7 to 10 degrees
As far as a little.
Celsius.
So you want it cold?
It's- To be fair, mate,
you'll heat up on the run.
you warm
Well, yeah.
yourself up. That's the thing. That's not too cold. That's fine. If it gets hotter than like 70 Fahrenheit, which is about 21 Celsius, you should probably postpone it. This was 90 Fahrenheit in the shade,
Jesus.
which is 32 in the shade. So it was probably about when running. It was probably felt more like 36, 37, which is about 100 to 105 Fahrenheit. And they didn't cancel. Another issue is, even though it's horribly dusty roads, horribly heat, there was one water source along the track, which was a well about 12 miles in, which was not a clean well. It reports that many competitors who weren't native to the area had disagreements with it. Which, yeah, no, it's not good. So basically, you're running and you're trying not to.
They
crap
didn't
yourself.
fight the well, Tom. They had,
Disagreements with the well.
To
I
be
don't
fair,
like
This well stance on taxes does not match mine.
Also, the big problem with this, that all this probably would have been fine to a certain extent, if not for the fact this marathon was run by idiots. Not actually physically run by idiots, the people who organised
The
it.
people who organised the marathon,
Yeah,
not the people
because
who
there was a
ran.
prevailing theory. There was a prevailing theory at the time that a certain level of water deprivation increases athletic ability. So they
Oh,
wouldn't
hell
let them.
no.
Oh
So
my god.
Yeah, so the trainers wouldn't let them drink water while they were running the course. A marathon. Yeah, this was
Did they die?
bad. No one died. Someone was hospitalised. I think so.
Fucking hell.
There was one particular fellow. I can't find his name right now, but he was the favourite to win. He had won, I think, the marathons before. He looked fairly good. He made it 2 blocks before he collapsed.
2 blocks?
Yeah, he barely got anywhere.
That's not far.
It was
Is
not
that
good
even
at
a
all.
mile?
What is a
No.
block?
It's a small cube.
I misheard you for a second there.
What did you think I said?
Let's not dwell on what I thought you said.
Tom, it can't be.
Okay.
Let's just say
I
it
think I
rhymes
know
with-
what you misheard it as, Tom, and let me tell you, it ain't as bad as what we discussed at the start of this
Oh.
podcast.
Oh no. I think I know what you misheard it as, and it was not that.
It depends. Like a block in New York would tend to be about 20 blocks to a mile. so it's not great. But he
so he got very, very short distance and died.
Yeah. He took a step and
did
fell
not
over.
finish.
He
Yeah,
tripped on his laces that the other competitors had tied together because it helps with running.
Yeah, that was it. It was John Charles Lawden. He won the 1903 Boston Marathon and did not do at all well on this.
Did not win this.
Yeah, he was the favourite to win, and he was one of the first out. There was, I believe, 32 people involved in this marathon. There were going to be more, but people had trouble getting there. Like, for instance, there was a Russian athlete who was supposed to be trying to get there despite the Russo-Japanese War, but he got there on the wrong day because the Russians were still using the Julian calendar rather than the Gregorian, which is kind of, I guess it's our fault, but still. So that was him. Fred Laws, who I believe I can find a good picture of here, because I hate him.
I despise this man.
Let me just pull this one down off my dartboard.
I'll put it in the
Got quite a bit of holes
in the
in it.
chat now. I'd say he has a distrustful face.
Oh my god, yeah.
Yes.
He does look like he's plotting.
Yeah.
He looks like he's gonna shank you when your back's turned.
You know what he looks like to me? He looks like pissed off Lovecraft.
Oh my god, he does.
He does. He does look a bit like Lovecraft.
Lovecraft, hate crime. No, anyway, no, it's,
The words go together synonymously,
Sa-
like
sa-
cheese and bread.
Sadly, that's more accurate than you think.
actually, it's the same number of letters. Okay, it doesn't matter. Anyway, he basically, Fred Laws, he got 9 miles into the race and then dropped out because of the heat, the exhaustion, the dust, which was kicking up and basically choking people. And he dropped out for 9 miles. Said, "I can't do it anymore." And his trainer said, "All right, I'll give you a lift back in the car to the stadium." Fine. So he started. Basically, he drove most of the way back to the stadium, waving at spectators and runners alike during the run because he'd obviously perked up the second he got back in the car. He basically. I'll get back onto him later. But there was.
Please don't tell me you tried to cheat.
He totally
Yes.
no. Come on.
Yes.
Does he use the car?
Is he getting actually driven to a different point in the race
Of course,
track?
he used the car.
Anyway,
I just looked at this man's face and I'm like, yeah, that's a fucking cheater.
Yeah,
He has
Not
the face of a
running kind. Not
cheater.
the running kind. Another guy who also collapsed fairly early on. Not fairly on. He did quite well, I think. William Garcia, United States. He was just found lying in the road on the marathon course.
Oh.
Oh
It
god.
turns out he had severe internal injuries, which basically been caused by breathing the clouds of dust kicked up the race officials' cars because there's so much dust. It basically sanded away part of his stomach lining.
Oh.
So he was
Oh,
bleeding
God.
intensely. So he had to be hospitalised.
Shit.
And yeah, not great.
Big oof.
Stop it. We can only do that when the shirts are available.
It was probably a good thing that he found that. Anyway, on to we'll go on to the probably the guy I consider the hero of all this.
The Cuban you
The Cuban guy.
appreciate.
The Cuban I appreciate.
What was his name?
I'll find it right now. It is here we are. Felix Caballero.
Oh.
He basically
That's a name.
this man wasn't this man was not a professional runner, as it were. Well, there weren't many professionals around here at this time, but it wasn't. He was a mailman from Cuba. What? I'll put a photo. I'll put a photo in the group. I'll put them in a second.
Go
after
fast to
explain what he
deliver the
did.
mail.
He basically didn't have enough money to get to the United States to do this. Because you'd have to get a boat ride to New Orleans, and then there's another 700 miles to St. Louis. It is insane the amount of distance to go. He basically he held running exhibitions in Cuba, which I assume is him just running basically around the place and people giving him money
Presumably, yeah.
to raise the money up to go there. Some people even claim that it's at some point he eventually ends up running the entire length of Cuba, which is bloody impressive.
That's wild.
Anyway, he raised enough money to get on the boat to New Orleans. Great, I'm going to the St. Louis Olympics. Immediately lost all his money at a crap stable in New Orleans.
Oh, crying! Jesus Christ!
It's fine, because all our heroes have to have a down point and an up point, right? Anyway,
The redemption arc.
Yeah, he lost all his money on his dice game. So basically, he had to partly hitchhike on trains and stuff to St. Louis. He also ran part of it.
Great training.
Yeah, great training. He got there. He did want to check the length of the island a bit. He was only 5 foot tall. He was quite a short guy, but he was a very striking figure because he got there and he didn't have any running clothes, so he was dressed in his regular clothes. So let me put that in Discord real quick. The photo of him approaching this race, because you see what Fred Laws is wearing. Everyone else is wearing that.
The vest and the
standard athletic gear.
The look of cheatery.
This is what Felix
Oh
Carvalho
my
wearing.
god!
my
Yes.
God.
Look at that fancy man.
What an amazing
turns up
attire!
in a long sleeve baggy shirt, a belt, a beret.
I
long
love his
johns,
moustache.
boots. It's a fantastic moustache.
It's-
Those are actually his trousers, which he's wearing. Those aren't shorts he's wearing. Those are trousers, which another runner took pity on and basically helped cut the bottoms off before he ran.
Oh my god!
He just turned up.
This is definitely a strong
Did someone take pity or did someone do that just to spite him?
I don't know, but he,
I want to start dressing like this from day to day.
Can we bring this look back?
But he set off running like that. He was one of the few people who actually finished the race. I'm gonna say right now.
Good.
But yeah, and as I said, it was a horrible race, and most of it was the initial bit of it was basically around the town before I got to the horrible dusty roads, and it was so literally dodging crosstown traffic and delivery wagons, trains, trolley cars, and people walking their dogs, just zipping in amongst these. Horrific. Yeah, as I said, there was that well, which probably is going to make you shit yourself if you want to try it.
The shitting well, as opposed to the wishing well.
Ah, that's why it was brown water.
And
Oh no!
Felix Carvalho made a very good time, even though he occasionally stopped to chat with spectators in not the best English, but passable English. And he hadn't really eaten on his way here because he didn't have the food to eat it. So at some point he basically stopped and grabbed some apples off a tree. Apparently, this is according to every source I've read about that said this happened. It feels like it shouldn't have happened, but it did happen. He grabbed a green apple off a tree and started eating it. Turns out the apple was rotten and he got horrific fucking stomach cramps. So he lay down to have a nap. We'll come back to Felix Carvalho later.
Okay.
Meanwhile, while he sleeps,
Yeah, we'll let him
The
rest.
modern day
He's
tortoise and the hare.
He's a precious boy.
Not modern day.
Oh
but-
my god! It is. It's the tortoise and the hare
It
situation.
is, that's what I'm saying. It is the tortoise and the hare. Anyway, there was also a man called Thomas Hitz, who was
why do I feel like
well, he was a brass worker from Massachusetts. He didn't have a great time of it because he was about, I want to say, 10 miles in where he was feeling awful and he was begging his trainers for a drink because they were following him in a car and basically yelling at him because that's how you do it now with that back then. Yeah, and because he was at that point he was in the lead. So he thought because he made a good lead out ahead. So I was begging the trainers for water. The trainer who was
A prick.
his name's I found his name before. Yeah, a prick.
A prick.
Landis, I think it was something like that. And wouldn't let him have any water because no, you run better when you're dehydrated. Shut up. He basically just sponged his mouth out warm distilled water and just covered him with like warm radiator water instead.
Oh.
Which is horrible. And then there's kind of sent him off. He got a little bit further and still put back. So he basically instead fed him a couple of eggs, like raw egg whites, and enhanced with a teeny little bit of strychnine, rat poison.
Wait. Oh my god.
Oh.
Yeah, because the trainer thought, that'll make him faster.
This will perk him up. The impending sense of death.
Because the thing is, strychnine in really low doses. What it does is I can't remember the actual term of the chemical, but it basically turns the off switch on your nerves off, so you can't. Because it's usually like you do a thing
Wait,
and
it's a
then
neurotoxin
stops.
essentially.
Kind of, yeah. It's pretty bad. And basically, so it means if you're doing an action, it basically doesn't stop you from doing an action. So obviously, if you're running, it might actually help with running because you just keep going. for a certain amount, for low amounts. The problem is if you do it too much, all your muscles basically fire and you're contorted and strained and you can't do anything because your muscles are
And
constantly
you get a
firing.
rat infestation in your home because you've used up
That
all the
too.
poison on yourself.
Exactly, yeah. No rats in you, though, so swings and roundabouts.
I'm just on the Wikipedia page for strychnine now, and it ain't good.
It's not good.
It,
No, it's too much.
it specifically says, well, it has no medical effects.
Oh, I forgot to. Yeah. What? No. I mean, like it.
As in, like,
technically, theoretically
beneficial
could be.
medical effects.
Yeah.
It's
I
the
think
worst.
death
It's really
counts
bad.
as a medical effect.
No, it's like you might be able to run a little bit better, but you will die. It's not good. I forgot to mention he did mix this with in the like seven miles from the end of the race. He was flagging again, so more egg mites, a little bit more strychnine, and let's mix it with some brandy. Fuck it.
Oh my God.
Also, Matt, since you asked, yes, it is technically classed as a neurotoxin.
There we go.
So
is he going to be called out for doping?
That's fine. Trainers can just do that. It's the 1900s. Who cares? But,
Doping with
he-
neurotoxin. What a way to
This
do
poor
it.
guy was basically back and
Hardcore.
forwards. He was described as ashen, so he just couldn't no
Totally
real colour.
pallid.
He was hallucinating for quite a bit of it. He kept on thinking
I'm not surprised.
He kept on thinking he was 20 miles from the finish line, and he kept on asking them to give him food and stuff like that. It's like, not good. At this point, he was about 6 miles from the finish line, so it was
Still bad.
yeah, it's not great. He was just fighting forwards, and he was just like, "So please, just let me lay down, go to sleep." At which point, there's something happens which almost breaks Thomas Hicks' spirit. What happens is about a similar distance actually from the race. About, I want to say, 7-ish miles from the stadium, the car that Fred Laws is in breaks down, and the guy stops out to get a look. Fred Laws, who's feeling markedly better for his jolly little car ride, really, such vehemence, thinks that, I actually feel a lot better now, I'm just going to run to the stadium and see what's going on there. So he just gets out and runs the rest of the way. So he passes Thomas Hicks, who knows he's in the lead, looking fresh as anything, looking so fresh for a man who's just passed the 20-mile mark that it's almost unbelievable, and it almost breaks Thomas Hicks' spirit. What happens is, bloody Fred Laws then continues on, and like people, I'll say before I say this, it's very hard to monitor a marathon in the 1900s
Yeah.
because, as far as everyone's aware, runners leave the stadium. You sit there for a couple of hours for some reason, then runners come back into the stadium and you cheer. Yay. What happened was,
Basically F1, but slower.
yeah.
That says a lot.
Yeah, but it's F1 if the cars went out of the track and just took a little
Kind of.
tour around Florence.
That is the
And they were
thing.
just sat there having a hot dog.
Is that not what Monte Carlo is?
So he'd ridden 11 miles in the car. One of Hicks' handlers saw him, basically told him to get off the course, but Laws just kept running, and he finished with a time of just under 3 hours, which is still not good for hours. Still not good. It's still not a good time. All these times are crap. I think something like the guy. I think they actually ultimately won it at a time of 3:28, and that's still slower than 98% of people who've ever run a marathon.
Yeah, what's like general marathon times?
I don't know average, but I can tell you that out of 1,400 or so people who've competed in marathons that are like Olympic marathons, that time is slower than 98% of them. So anyway,
These guys are shit.
But Fred Laws crossed the line at 3:13, so earlier than that, to chant from the crowd. The crowd roared and began chanting "An American one," which I don't know how you chant that well. To
An American one! An American one!
American one!
Let's just break into song.
Yes,
An
Is
American.
it just Star
1, 2,
Spangled
3,
Banner?
he crossed. He literally went through the bloody tape. He got a picture with the Alice Roosevelt, the 20-year-old daughter of President Theodore Roosevelt at the time, and who placed a wreath on his head because everyone thought he'd won because he just turned up in a semi-reasonable time. And they literally were about to put the gold medal on around his neck. Obviously, Fred Laws at this point is saying nothing to the effect of, "Oh no, I didn't win." Bust.
Of course, he's a
For a
cheeky
man
little
called
shit.
Laws,
He loves to break
much
'em.
respect for the
And
rules.
when a witness reported, this is a quote, someone called an indignant halt to the proceedings with the charge that Laws was an imposter. I love the language.
He's not Fred Laws at all. There's an imposter among
Cuban
us.
fellow.
I saw him vent. He's not legit.
Anyway, the cheers turned to boos, at which point Laws, with a massive grin on his face, said, "Oh no, I never intended to accept the award. It was all a joke. I did it for a laugh." No one believed this, of course. Because he basically pretended the whole
Natural
time,
deception.
"Oh, I broke that tape, got a photo of the president's daughter, and was about to have the medal on my neck, because I thought it'd be funny. Of course I didn't win." Everyone's just like, this guy is such a dick. This guy is one of the worst. And Americans dead. No, but no.
This guy's a dick. Give it to the pale hallucinating man instead.
So naturally, yeah, Hicks at this point can barely straighten his legs. He's he's just kind of limping along. His arms like falling down by his side. He can't do any. He is in such a bad state. But he keeps on plodding. At which point the handler's got his handlers. God, trainer's got the news. The trainer's got direct the beast. No, the trainer's got the
Just
news
whipping
that. Might as well at this point. You probably can't feel it with a strychnine in him. Anyway, but his trainer's got the message that Laws have been disqualified. Hicks can still win. I mean, I'm not to look at him, but Hicks can still technically win. But,
Is it really a win if you're dead inside?
Hicks,
yeah,
who currently believes he's in the desert somewhere.
they.
How can I win? I'm 20 miles from the finish.
Yeah, that's pretty much what he's probably said. It was. Here we go. There's a quote from. Here we go. Charles Lucas. I think that's the bugger who is the trainer. Anyway, it's Hicks was running mechanically like a well-oiled piece of machinery. Bullshit. He wrote a book about this afterwards, which is why we know so much about it. His eyes were dull, lustreless. The ashen colour of his face and skin had deepened. His arms appeared as weights well tied down. He could scarcely lift his legs with his knees were almost stiff.
Does he realise he's just contradicted his own description there by saying he was
Yes,
running by a well-oiled
like
machine,
a well-oiled
and then
machine.
immediately describing how fucked up it made
One that's
his
been
runner.
broken for years. No. Anyway, he was giving more brandy, more egg whites. They still wouldn't give him any water.
Put more strychnine in the system.
Yeah, he walked up the first of the last hills, jogged down the incline, swing to the stadium. He tried to run, but was reduced to a graceless shuffle. His trainers pretty much carried him over the line. After this, they kind of introduced rules like, "We'll allow that, but from now on, we're not allowed to carry people over the line," which is fair because I don't think you want a third guy to maybe the third guy will win this. Yeah, because we've already had one cheating bastard. Yeah, he got declared
And the
winner.
second one just died on the line. So
Yeah, he got. Oh god. Yeah, pretty much.
I'm assuming he went to hospital.
It took 4 doctors and 1 hour for Hicks to feel well enough just to leave the grounds. He had lost
hell.
8 pounds during the race. That's 3.5 kilograms.
Oh,
Wow.
God, that is...
And,
Did he lose a limb somewhere?
No.
nobody left part of himself back.
He declared afterwards, "Never in my life have I run such a tough. I think that's tough. Yeah, tough course. The terrific hills simply tear a man to pieces." So that's Thomas Hicks.
I was gonna say, isn't Chicago flat?
Chicago.
Were there any hills?
No,
Yeah, I
this
was
is
gonna ask.
St. Louis.
Are there any
Oh.
hills in
St. Louis, you
America? Are the hills a myth? We're on a flat Earth,
Bob
right?
Nubbers. Anyway, no, St. Louis it's got a couple of hills in it.
Alright.
Anyway, the 2 fellows who I was talking about, Len Tao and Jan Masciani, they did fairly well. Masciani came in 12th, and people were really looking forward. They thought Len Tao would be. They think that he probably would have done a lot better than he was, but unfortunately he was chased a kilometre off course by feral dogs.
Bam, out
I
of
feel
nowhere.
like in parts this is both horrific and also a great sketch show.
I really want a movie made about this because it is so beautiful. So Len Tao
carry
finished
on
in
running.
9th place. Jan Masciani came in 12th. But
Where's
what?
the Cuban boy? What's
But
happening
what?
to our Cuban boy?
What about?
He's just
Anthony
woken up.
Tabayel? Andrew Carvajal, after his short nap, woke up and continued on the rest of the race. Still in his work clothes. Well, basically. And he finished in 4th place.
Yes!
So
Wow.
It's in!
Pretty
there's
good.
probably a picture of, there's a
Re-
picture of him,
That's
I'll
real
try
good
and
to
get
see he
the
had a
photos.
nap.
I'll try and get a picture of him
Brilliant.
crossing the line, I
Absolutely
believe.
Brilliant.
This is him running. It's funny because what I love is that he's still got the beret on.
Easily recognizable by his beret and long black
That's
socks.
pretty good. Oh,
I'm trying to find.
I love how the
man
guy.
who-
I imagine the
I
guy
will-
stood there. He's like, "Are you not gonna give me my mail or not?"
he's just been waiting for a
I am
parcel.
I'm waiting for a
I will-
package, actually.
I will-
If you could
Well, they
come back,
don't-
I'm waiting for a...
I will.
What
put
they
a
don't
picture
say
of,
is that he got followed from Cuba by a guy demanding his mail.
That's not the end of Vander and Carvajal. Let me tell you what. Anyway, I will say the picture I just put in there was of Lentau and Jan Masciani because they do deserve it, considering they probably ran it barefoot.
Yeah.
One of which I don't know which one's pictured there with bare feet, but
Jan Masciani, I believe, is the guy on the left, and Lentau is the one on the right.
Very impressive.
Lentau, is the guy barefoot who was the one chased, of course, by dogs. Anyway, the poor bastard.
the other one looks like he's just wearing like makeshift sandals, so that's not much better.
No.
There's an image here of all the runners that who were actually competing. You see if you can spot Ander and Carvajal.
Where's my beret sporting boy?
Felix Carvajal, yeah,
He's number
he's
3,
quite
right in the middle.
yeah, he is smack. I love that they must have just put the bloody sticker on his
thank
shirt. But yes. Anyway, so that nonsense happened. Ultimately, I believe out of 32 runners, I believe 12 got across the line. That's 14,
Jesus.
14, I think. There was
The rest
Most
were
of
chased
America, I
away
think
by
there
the
were-
feral dogs.
Some say they're still running to this day.
everyone else
They're
did
part of the
not
pack
finish,
now.
except for Frederick Laws,
Damn
who
it,
got
Corby, you
disqualified
stole my
because
next
that
special.
bastard. Still under this day.
Is that what
Yeah,
all the beasts
it
you
was-
keep talking about are?
Yeah.
They're just these men that like ran off and became men beast
They
hybrids.
ended up in Swordenboard.
And in fucking the English one.
Hackney.
That's the one.
Botman. All the other monsters.
All of the above.
But the great thing is that was basically the end of the damn marathon. But they almost didn't have another marathon again because they
I wonder why.
because they basically just thought we almost killed people, several people. The guy who won was hopped up on rat poison and carried across the line. But that's the thing. The thing is, both Thomas Hicks and Fred Laws went in the marathon next year, the 1905 Boston Marathon. Fred Laws did win that one without any extra add-ons, so he proves that the prick can actually
So
run. He
he's
just
that.
didn't want to.
He was running on the terror of being stabbed by the people seeing him.
There's just a guy with a knife just chasing him.
That guy cheated! Shank him!
Oh god, those feral dogs! They came all the way from St. Louis.
The guy just runs past him. Still going.
What I was really looking for was just scrolling down the list and going, Sydney Hatch, Len Tao, dog. I was really hoping to say that. I didn't, unfortunately, but I think he managed to lose them, which is lucky.
Just a rogue greyhound.
Yeah, so... And it was... Yeah, so basically the whole race began and ended in a stadium, but most of it was run on dusty country roads. And, of course, everyone who was part of the race, other than the runners, were riding about in vehicles, so kicking up dust everywhere. It was awful. Before you set up, you had to do 5 laps around the stadium track to get up enough distance. It was awful. Anyway,
Charge.
so that was...
Charge yourself up.
Yeah. So that was the end of Thomas... Well, not the end of... that was the end of the story for Thomas Hicks and Fred Laws. But what, you ask, of Felix de la Caridad Carvajal.
Your favourite Cuban.
Also known as Andron Carvajal. Yeah.
Our favourite
he was-
mailman.
Yeah. Oh, Carvajal. He basically returned to St. Louis the following year to run in the Western Marathon, which he finished third in a time of 3:44. So I assume they gave him
pretty
actual
good.
clothes for that. But the great thing is, the Cuba suddenly went, oh, we've actually got a decent runner. Let's sponsor him to go in the 1906 Olympic Marathon at Athens, Greece. Because for some reason they did one in 1906, so 1908. Don't worry about it. But his expenses were funded by the Cuban government. However,
That's cool. Oh.
when he landed in Italy and disappeared, never arrived in Athens, didn't compete. Everyone thought Andron Carvajal was dead, and they published his obituary in the Cuban newspapers and thought that was the end of it. Until a year later, 1907, he came back to Havana on a Spanish steamer. And
What is he doing?
no one knows.
He ran left when he should have gone right.
Delivering
the
mail
wrong
all
one.
around Italy.
I don't know why he was on a Spanish
Top-
boat, but he
Ran from the top of Italy, he ran to the left west towards Spain as opposed to the right towards where Athens would be.
I would fully
His map was upside down.
believe that he just went the wrong way.
Oh my
Anyway,
god! Did
but
he
then
not say? Did he not say what had happened?
No, I don't think so. He then turned professional and would go on to defeat American distance runner Henry W. Shelton in a 6-hour race in 1907. And he
That makes
Yeah.
it sound the way because you said defeat. That makes it sound so much more like ominous and high
Crushing
stakes than it.
defeat.
But it wasn't just a run. There was other
Yes.
stuff.
This is just not just a run. This is an anime run. You don't win. You defeat your opponents.
well, to be fair, I
You
mean,
lose this race, you get
the
fed to the
Boston
feral
Marathon.
dogs.
No, sorry, the
Release
St.
the
Louis
dogs.
Marathon. He ran, stopped to talk to people, ran, ate an apple, ran, got stomach cramps, had a nap, ran, still got fourth. I don't know how he did that, but
Fucking brilliant.
I'm gonna say because 20 of the participants didn't make it.
Yeah,
Well, no, but then still 14 people crossed the line, but still.
that's impressive. That's very impressive.
Out of 32, not great, but anyway. I've got to say about that bloody Olympics. I think like 80-something% of Americans were 80% plus of people who won medals in it were Americans. This was partly because it was mostly Americans participating. It was also because the Americans were just, well, literally anyone who basically turned up and hadn't like ultimately signed up for a country. They just
Was
enlisted as American. Yeah, like there was two Swedish guys who happened to be living in America at the time and said, "Yep, they're American." There was an undocumented. One was definitely an illegal immigrant. There was a French guy who turned up and they just said, "He's undocumented. He's American." And literally, it was that bad.
hell.
And yeah, it was really bad. Carvajal, he did a marathon derby in 1909, which 12 other professional marathon runners. He did get lapped by the leaders, but he did finish, but he was never out of last place. He still held his own. So I just love this from this bloody mailman from Cuba.
That is like
With
a
a
true
fantastic
underdog
mustache.
story. That is like
Yeah.
what's the one about the Jamaican bobsleigh team?
Cool
runnings.
runnings.
Cool
Cool
running.
runnings. Yeah, but but he didn't really lose horribly. He actually did something. But he was he was good. He lived all the way to 1949. Died age 73. So not
Did
in
he?
1907, why everyone thought he did. 1906 even. It's like we've lost the runner. Where? Italy. Oh, he's probably dead.
He died for a few
We'll never
years, but
find
then he
him.
came back.
He literally turned up like a year later.
I love
so
that.
much later.
I love that.
He never told anyone what he was doing in that time.
Also, it might be.
No, I can't
High
find your
on
sources. I
rat
cannot-
poison in Palmero.
he got involved in Pamplona and he didn't find his way out.
He was in the bull run as the bull.
Oh god. Just awesome is very. No,
Well,
anyway.
Also, not to be like that guy, but Athens. It's in Greece, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes. He got a boat to Italy and was supposed to get transport to
Presumably,
Greece.
yeah, take
Right,
another
okay.
boat down, yeah.
But yeah,
And the boat stopped in Italy and on its way
Yeah,
to
he
Greece.
got off and
You
we've
have to
never
remember,
seen it again.
transport's not that fantastic.
Did he
in
just
1900s.
get, like, at the risk of offending anyone who's ever known someone who disappears on a cruise, is that what
That's
happened
weird.
to him?
What a prelude to a sentence.
That's such a weird. think there are any more Titanic
I'm not going to
survivors left.
elaborate on my thought process to get into that sentence.
God. But yeah,
He just got off of Italy
Anyway,
thinking he got into
that
Greece,
was the.
and he thought he could just stay.
Sure.
Just went gambling. I don't know, but
Well,
yeah,
he
that
did
was
lose
the
all his money.
1904.
Oh my god, he must have got into gambling and something happened.
And then he had to
Anyway.
gamble for a whole year before he could pay his way back.
Or is he running from his debtors for the whole year?
Here's a quick image, by the way. We should probably put this at the start of that's how
Oh,
that's a graph
wow.
of how many athletes are from which countries.
There was an Australian.
There was one Australian.
One.
And you have to remember, two of the athletes from South Africa were the guys who were Lentau and Jana
Yeah.
Masiani,
Oh,
who were
Swiss and an Austrian.
basically the reenactors who thought we might as well give the marathon here while we have a chance. It was awful. I love that.
I'm
just
trying
like
to work
one
out
from
whether
Cuba.
that's 10 Germans or 30 Germans.
That's 30 Germans.
That's 10.
No, 10 Germans, sorry. 30 Canadians. There's red for 100, but I don't see red anywhere.
No.
Also, 4 Hungarians?
Apparently.
They're probably Austro-Hungarians at that point.
Well,
No,
no,
because
because
Austria and
Austria's
Hungary are
separate.
there listed as because there's 1 from Austria and 4 from Hungary.
Well, Austria-Hungary wasn't a unified country.
Anyway,
It was under 2 crowns, but it wasn't actually...
right.
it was
That's
still
probably why it was
technically
called
a
it
country.
separately. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was the 1904 St. Louis Marathon, which should be a film.
Oh,
I'd watch it.
Yeah. No, the French athlete I was talking about was Albert Corby, who came second in that marathon, and also came in as a mixed team. But he was a Frenchman who was taking place in the marathon, but they attributed his medal to America because he just moved to America, basically. I think.
right.
And that was pretty bad. Also, that thing where I told you that Thomas Hicks likes his strychnine with a side of egg white and lots of brandy. All that nonsense. Unfortunately, his trainer gave him so much brandy that he had to get another bottle from a passerby. So he was probably sloshed
He was
as well as
sloshed
high.
as well.
Oh my god.
Yeah,
Fucking
that was
brilliant.
the other fact. Just give me my backup brandy.
Oh my god.
We've run out of the backup brandy.
Get the backup brandy!
Oh, poor bastard. Anyway,
Oh, well,
Matt, what wonderful thing
that-
have you got this week?
that was awesome. I am going to dive roughly... It's probably about 40... Just over 40 years into the future for this one.
How?
We're going back to World War II.
Oh,
Gentlemen.
From then, not from now.
yeah. I thought you meant 40 years from now. I was like, how?
Yes, I've been to the future. Oh,
Which
gentlemen,
which is it?
have a
World War III or communist dystopia?
both.
It can be both. You just have to believe.
It's not what Steins Gate told me, but we have one or the other.
Away from communist dystopias that will not happen eventually. Gentlemen, I have a question to you. In your opinion, what is the strangest battle you can think of? Out of entire history.
I know one, but I'm going to talk about it one week.
That one Sabaton covered where the Russians basically turned into zombies was pretty cool.
Oh, right, yeah.
Very cool.
That's good. Emu War was interesting.
The emus
That
one.
was, the Emu War. Is a fascinating topic.
The
strangest
War of the Bucket.
I'm gonna need you to elaborate on that.
Oh, well, basically there was this whole thing where Medina was very much for the Holy Roman Emperor, and in Bologna was very much for the Pope, where basically this part of time, 1100s onwards, where Italy was split between Pope and Holy Roman Empire, but who do we like? And Bologna basically kept on going over and just, I think, burning parts of Medina's fields and like that, and Medina kept on doing the likewise to them, and eventually got to the point where Bologna, I think, set off with 32,000 men to go attack one of Medina's cities. Medina somehow fought them off with about 7,000 men. Only 2,000 men on both sides died. Chased them back to one of their cities. They shut themselves inside. Thought, well, what are we going to do now? Let's take some to prove we won the battle. I was well over there. We'll nick that bucket. Hey, we got your bucket! And they went back, and there has been a bucket in Medina to this day.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
Fair enough.
Oh.
Good night, everybody.
There's more
That's it. I
facts
don't need to
along
do
that,
my
but-
report. No, all,
Has there
all
ever
good
been
choices.
a one-day war or something like that?
There
that's
have
happened?
been, there was the
Yes.
Anglo-Zanzibar War, which was half an hour or something.
Yeah, 38 minutes.
All good choices.
We did put colonialism down to an art. Oh dear.
I, however, will be talking about what I think is one of the weirdest wars or weirdest battles ever. Not because of the nature of the fighting, more because it's so obscure, or until recently it was very obscure, and really because of who was fighting who in the war. Now, John, you say you had a battle you wanted to cover later. I might be covering that right now.
If it's World War II, it won't be it.
Oh, thank God. Well, I'm not covering it. So, a little bit of an overview. The year is April 1945.
Sorry.
I realised a weird way
I'm
of
gonna
phrasing that date.
The year is
The
April.
year is April.
Just looked it up.
Oh, April, what a year.
Is that the title of the podcast? The year is April.
It is now.
The year is April 1945. Regardless, digressions aside, World War II is coming to an end. V-Day is just around the corner, and the Fuhrer's reign is at its end. Hitler, as we all know, either shot himself in his bunker or disguised himself as Senor Hilter and fled to Argentina. Either way, he was out of the war.
I love the theory that he was a fisherman off the Irish coast, a lobster fisherman for so long. Because some guys thought that looks a bit like Hitler, and that was basically just a poor lobster
Close
fisherman.
enough. Indeed, whilst the Soviets smashed through Hungary and into most of Eastern Germany, occupying Poland and the like, Italy had surrendered at this point. The Allies sat poised to invade Germany via Austria. The noose was ready to tighten around the remnants of the Reich. Despite fears of massive Alpine fortresses said to guard the route to Germany, the Allies began their invasion in May, quickly seizing border territory and cities like Innsbruck on and around. Like, I think it's the Italian border, or French-Swiss border.
Innsbruck sounds like
not
someone.
that that's relevant.
Innsbruck sounds like someone trying to parody Lovecraft.
Yes, it really does.
Innsbruck is like smack bang in Austria between Germany and Italy.
Yeah, so it's slap bang in the middle of Austria. So they were traveling quite fast into Austria. Austria not being that big.
It's a
Their
thin bit.
fears of big killer bunkers that could drag the war out for months was wholly unfounded. However, there were fortresses that did exist, such as in the territory of Northern Tyrol, which is kind of, as John said, the central area just above Italy. This fact week, we return to World War II for one last fight. In the death throes of the Third Reich, this is the battle for Castle Itter,
So I need my
aka
gun?
the last battle.
When he said we returned,
Crazy
to
that
it,
we
I
haven't
got worried.
had another battle since.
It's another World War II. So,
World War II, electric boogaloo.
World War II 2.
World War II, Führer harder.
I'm going to talk briefly about Castle Itter. Because Castle Itter plays a big role, given that it's the battle for Castle Itter. Castle Itter is a beautiful 13th century castle.
How are you
rebuilt
spelling
several times.
Itter? Out of curiosity. 'Cause
I-double-T-E-R.
I-double-T-E-R. Because I refuse to believe you're pronouncing that right.
Nope, it's pronounced Itter. I checked. It's been rebuilt several times in its existence. It was leased to the German government in 1940.
Oh,
and
wow.
I'll tell you
I've
what.
I've just like Googled Itter and like I've got pictures of the castle. My God.
Oh yeah, please put them in the as long as they're not spoilery images, please put them in the chat.
Viewers on YouTube should see these appearing on your screen about now. If Corby gets
Whoa!
Well, there's what looks like an old-timey one.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it is. That is Castle Itter.
It looks kind of gaudy, to be honest, but all right.
It's As castles go, it's okay.
I think it's the shutters. I don't like the shutters.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the German government leased it in 1940. I'll tell you why they leased it at the end, because it's not relevant, but it is great why they leased it.
Right.
Despite the castle's relatively small size, it sits on a hill that overlooks the village of the same name, offering a commanding view of the area. So it's an important strategic strongpoint, essentially.
Yeah.
It is not a surprise, then, that it was converted, much like Colditz, into a prison, specifically into an SS prison. In 1943, it was incorporated into the Dachau concentration camp network. And Itter became a prison for high-profile personnel and was reinforced accordingly. So you already have a medieval castle. The SS, using a prison labor force, massively reinforced the walls with metal, dug a deep, dry moat around the perimeter.
Sorry.
Bear in mind, Itter is on essentially a hill already, like a steep hill, if you look at that picture. So they added a moat at the bottom of that. They made its gatehouse virtually impregnable. Well, obviously you only got one way into the castle, through the gatehouse.
It's not that big. I think I could just have a ladder, to be honest. But...
well, they didn't try ladders. They tried something equally medieval to get in.
Oh, don't tell me they use siege towers.
No, they didn't use siege towers.
A horse?
No.
Trying to think of medieval things.
You probably won't. I say relatively medieval. You don't expect modern warfare to be using these tools to get in.
There's another picture of the castle on the hill, according to this.
Yeah.
Oh, is that it?
Yeah, that's like it's on like the actual top of a hill.
Yeah, that's more like more menacing from that side. It's trebuchet parachute.
No, not trebuchet parachute.
See if it works.
The rest of the exterior was stacked with barbed wire, and all of the doors and cells within the prison had the most up-to-date intricate locks. It was virtually impossible to take. The SS would soon come to regret that fact.
Bugger.
So Itter was pretty decent as camps went, which isn't saying much. It did have picturesque views, relatively good meals in inverted commas. I think the prisoners got 3 meals a day, which is more than could be said.
That's food.
For most camps. They had an exercise yards and also a library that high-profile prisoners could use. The prisoners themselves were a veritable who's who of famous Frenchmen from the time period. There were 14 French VIPs, and counted amongst them were some very famous names, which I'm just going to read off the names to you. I don't know if you guys all heard these people.
Charles de Gaulle.
Anyone who knows a bit about
Charles de Gaulle.
It's not Charles de Gaulle, but...
Oh, good. I'll switch to my knife.
So, we had Edouard Daladier, who was the former French Prime Minister at the outbreak of World War II. He had signed the Munich Agreement, the policy of appeasement, staunch anti-German and all that stuff. He was ousted from power, however, by another prisoner, Paul Reynaud, a politician and lawyer who became president after Daladier because he opposed appeasement and was like, no, we have to stick it to these Germans and you've appeased them too long. He ended up seeing France defeated by Germany and was basically, whisked away immediately after. And he was helped by doing this by a French general named Maxime Weygand, a famous French general from World War One. But he's best known for surrendering France to Germany in World War II, signing the armistice, and then collaborating with the Vichy French government as Philippe Pétain's defense minister.
Is this the loser castle? What?
Oh, yeah. Yes, it is.
This feels like the start of a bad sitcom. It's always just depression.
I'm struggling to believe that this is to actually happen. He was very surprised to find his fellow general and the man he had replaced sharing this company. A man named Maurice Gamelin, who had led the French in the disastrous Battle of France at the start of the war. He was also a decorated World War I hero. He had been supported by Daladier when Daladier was in charge, but he was replaced by Weygand on the orders of Reynaud. So, to clarify, you have 2 former presidents/prime ministers who hate each other because they're at the opposite ends of the political spectrum and basically didn't work together, and 2 former commanders-in-chief who hate each other because one replaced the other and are backed by one of the other 2 presidents.
This does sound like you're setting up a sitcom.
It really
Just,
does.
just the way you're saying it, who hate each other. See how they interact inside the walls of Castle Itter.
I'm also pretty sure they
Castle
all hated.
Itter on Comedy Central.
I'm all pretty sure they hated Wagan because he collaborated. But that is not those are not the only important VIPs. You also had a man by the name of Michel Clemenceau, who was a former politician and intelligence officer. Jean Borotre, who will play an important role later, a famous tennis champion known as one of the 4 musketeers who dominated 1920s tennis.
Right.
You also had, I'm probably going to pronounce this wrong, you had Marie Agnes Callios, who was Charles de Gaulle's sister. You also had a guy called Francois Delarouche, who was a right-wing French resistance leader.
Delarouche sounds familiar for some reason.
And a bunch of other French resistance members. So
But
you
isn't-
have
okay. Most of those were sort of people in the army or intelligence or that sort of career. One of those was a tennis player.
Yep.
I swear.
What, did he beat Germany in the finals? What?
I swear Delarouche is like a kind of road.
It might be.
That might be why it's called it.
Jean Borotre will play a key role later.
I just hear that as John Barocca, but yeah, fair enough.
Did he whack a tennis ball into Germany's backyard and they never forgave him for the greenhouse panel it took out?
He managed to hit it so it hit one of the keys on the outside, so it turned in the lock, and they could leave.
You guys are thinking way too much Prison Break. This is the last battle.
All right, yeah. War.
So, these guys were all from all over French politics and pretty much detested each other. So much so that they split into 3 distinct groups who sat separately at mealtimes. Presumably, Wagan was sat on his own because everyone hated him.
They're so sad.
Unfortunately for them, despite the fact they hated each other, they would soon realize that they'd need to set their differences aside or all be horribly murdered. So, prelude to the battle. At the end of World War II, Austria was infested by holdouts of what remained of the shattered Western Wehrmacht German forces.
The Wehrmacht, yeah.
The Wehrmacht, shattered Wehrmacht forces. They were led by a corps of SS units and die-hard soldiers. Many of the station troops in Austria were formerly Austrian. The Austrian army had been merged into the Wehrmacht pretty much like,
Look
I
at
want to
that
say
when
1 or
Matt's
2
done.
months. What?
Look at that into this goes when Matt's done.
Okay.
And basically merged the 2 armies together straight after the Anschluss. Unfortunately for the Germans, not all of the Austrians were happy about being under the rule of the Reich, and a budding resistance movement had been underway throughout the entire war, which apparently the Germans knew nothing about. This helped massively. This was all helped massively by sympathetic soldiers in the army who shielded members from reprisal attacks and basically learned everything they could about German military tactics, maneuvers, and stall plans, gave war to resistance. They became emboldened at the end of April, revealing key German defenses and safely guiding the Allied spearhead through clear routes in the Inn-River Valley, which is kind of the valley that comes into Austria, into northern Tyrol, and that the area this all takes place. Yet the threat of SS reprisals was ever present, intent on crushing who they could, because a lot of Austrians were now draping white flags from their windows, raising the Austrian flag, and basically showing, yeah, we're giving up, we're on the Allies' side. So the SS were coming along and trying to kill them all. It is here that we meet the first of our major figures. I'm going to put a picture of this guy in the Discord.
All right.
I will be putting pictures of all of them in the Discord.
In the discard pile.
Behold this happy man.
He looks very cheery.
That's the happiest Nazi I've ever seen.
Well, he's not a Nazi, John.
I mean, he's
Not
wearing the uniform.
anymore.
I know what you mean. Yeah, no, fair enough. But I mean, he's in the uniform in the picture. I'm not. I mean, fair enough.
He knows
You
what he
can say-
did.
Well,
he helps the Allies out. That's why he's so smug.
Oh yeah, he's dead happy, dead chuffed. That man there is a man by the name of Major Josef Gangl, Sepp to his friends.
Gangle.
He was a highly decorated German major and a staunch anti-Nazi. Born in Bavaria, this
Fair enough.
former shop assistant joined the army in 1928 and became a career soldier, fighting on both the Western and Eastern fronts. He was awarded the Iron Cross first and second class.
Is that what
As
he's
well-
wearing on this uniform?
I didn't know there were classes of
Presumably.
it.
So
Fair.
apparently there are. That or he won it twice. As well as the German Gold Cross. It is unclear when he became disillusioned with the Reich, but by April 1945, he was head of the Austrian resistance in the town of Virgil, a very important town, which you guys need to remember the name Virgil.
Virgil.
Isn't he from Devil May
using-
Cry? Oh no, wait, that's Virgil. Never mind.
I like that. That was a good joke.
Using his 20 loyal troops, Gangl aimed to stop any SS reprisals. Fortunately for Gangl, the SS weren't focused on him. In early May 1945, roughly, I want to say May 2nd, 3rd kind of period, the mood at Castle Itter was dark, to put it mildly. For weeks before, SS officers and their wives had passed through on their way to flee the country, presumably into Switzerland. And the French VIPs were worried what would happen should the war end before they escaped. It was a good thing they were worried, because on May the 4th, the last commander of Dachau shot himself in the heart. As a side note, he didn't do a good job of it. He did quite a messy job of it, survived, and then had to shoot himself in the head.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's.
Oh,
I wouldn't really aim for the heart, because it's just like, well, you think you know where it is, but are you 100% sure? And you're probably still going to feel it.
Well,
and
most people think it's on the left, but it's actually in the centre.
Yeah,
Well,
it's
it's kind of
more in the middle.
center and down. What's weird is that I think when it comes to suicides, most men shoot themselves in the head, and most women shoot themselves in the chest for some reason. I don't understand why.
Huh.
Anyway, continuing.
Needless to say, the suicide of their superior officer didn't do a whole lot for the morale of the SS guards, who promptly
that
left.
would bring down morale.
Yeah, they got up and out. Most of them got up. In fact, pretty much all of them got up and went, fuck it, we're done, we're going. With the castle practically empty, Paul Renault, the former president, and at this point, an old man. This guy is like, I want to say in his 60s or his 70s. Like, he's an old man.
I just love the idea of the SS troops just hearing from down the corridor. Bang! Oh my God! Bang! Like, yeah, okay, well. I'm assuming.
Yeah, I was
that-
imagining like a top-down simulation game. The man in charge is gone and everyone else just filters out.
In an orderly fashion.
should we go check on that Hans or?
Nine, it's
Nine.
fine. Let us take the gear and leave.
9. People miss happy hour if we go check.
Oh,
God.
So
Every German is camping accents. I don't know why.
always is. So with the castle practically empty, Paul Renault, the elderly former president / prime minister, and Clemenceau, the intelligence officer, decided to go for a stroll into Itter village. So, as far as everybody is aware, Castle Itter is under the rule of the SS. A French politician and a middle-aged intelligence
French
officer
spy.
just walking out the gate.
Sounds like a bad joke.
They looked around and were like, oh, it's not so bad, all the SS have gone. Went a little down the hill into Itter, and immediately about-faced because they saw a horde of SS patrolling the area.
Oh dear.
Oh dear. These SS were not affiliated with the SS in the castle. They're going to come back later. Not the castle SS, they're gone. The other SS will feature later. Rumours quickly reached them that said SS in the village intended to slaughter all the prisoners before moving on. So the French VIPs armed themselves and took over the castle with a plan. They had one small hope. The second member of the Triforce of heroes.
The tennis
Now,
player.
Is it the tennis guy?
Nope, it's not the tennis player.
Oh.
The picture is in the chat. Tell me who you think that is or what he does.
Crack. Anyway. His eyes are slightly off center, so that's kind of worrying. It's just kind of like,
Certainly not hat fitting.
So,
That is crooked as fuck.
while
two tanks in the distance that are just slightly apart.
while Gangle was a Wehrmacht officer, the VIP's true hope lay in a man called Kurt Siegfried Schrader, a former Hitler Youth and SS officer who they'd befriended during his recovery from wounds.
I just imagine smiling now. That's horrifying.
He'd sustained these wounds in the Normandy landings, and it turns out that Schrader was also a member of the Austrian resistance, as luck would have it.
Ah.
At some point, he too had become disillusioned. Whether that's because he wasn't a Nazi or he just realised that, he wanted to get on the right side of war crimes. Let's put it like that.
I mean, he wasn't a Nazi. He did go Hitler Youth and SS. I mean, it's really hard to...
He is wearing an
distance
SS
yourself.
uniform.
Gangle wasn't a Nazi. This guy probably was.
Oh, right. Yeah, no, okay. I thought you were speaking of this guy when you were just talking then. Fair enough.
Yeah. So yeah, this guy, the second guy I put a picture you guys should be seeing is Kurt Siegfried Schrader, very clearly an SS officer.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Schrader, turned out he was an Austrian resistance member. Who knew? He also knew Josef Gangle, which was handy. And the French VIPs asked him to help secure the castle and come up with a plan. The plan was a very simple one. They would send out one of the prisoners.
It was a simple plan.
Simple plans are the best plan.
It was Canadian punk man's simple plan.
Exactly. So
They were going to sing an angsty song at the SS. Yeah.
and hopefully the SS would put their guns down and realise how futile existence was. So, the plan was a simple one, not to be confused with Simple Plan. They would send out one of the prisoners to get a message to the Americans. Now, as well as the 14 French VIPs and a bunch of resistance, or who were like the mix of the people I mentioned, resistance fighters, there are also a lot of prisoners who are maintenance staff, essentially. People who they, for whatever reason, the Germans trusted not to betray them.
I guess it's just they don't want to clean up after themselves.
Basically, yeah. So the day before, on May 3rd, a Yugoslavian communist partisan who was there as a prisoner and a former electrician, a man by the name Kukovic, set out for Innsbruck by bike with a letter for the US Army. His orders very specifically were to just go in that direction and give this letter to the first US soldier you meet and just tell him what's happening and get back here.
Fair.
He cycled 40 miles up that Inn River Valley I talked about earlier and managed to reach Innsbruck unhindered and found by chance members of the 103rd Infantry Division. Unfortunately for Kukovic, they couldn't give him an answer on the rescue until the next day. So he got there, I want to say on May 4th. So he wouldn't be able to give him an answer until May 5th.
Yeah.
Or they couldn't give him an answer until May... No. So he got there on the evening of May 3rd, and they couldn't give him an answer until May 4th. Dates were a little screwy with this.
Okay.
So the VIPs weren't sure if Kukovic was going to make it. To help boost morale, they sewed a tricolour banner, the French flag, and draped it over the walls in hopes of attracting Allied planes, which makes it sound like the Allied planes are birds.
Well, yes, there is an Allied. There
on
are
the walls for the Allies.
Sure, I get the fact there's Allied planes, but is there not the fact there's there's fucking SS crawling through the fucking town?
Yeah. They just seem to pass their mind.
It'll be fine.
And they also decided that, as well as draping a banner, maybe they should send someone else out. So they got another prisoner, the Czech cook, who I couldn't find a name for.
Oh no, just the Czech cook.
Sounds like
Did he die?
No.
Oh, okay.
He took the other bike and another letter to the nearby town of Virgil. Now,
Virgil.
that was the town I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Virgil, hell yeah.
So the cook arrived there on the evening of May 4th. Or no, evening of May 3rd, sorry.
Yeah.
In the evening, and he was very nearly caught by an SS patrol, but was saved at the last minute when Josef Gangl personally dragged him inside the building that he was in. And I literally imagine Gangl opens a window, sees the guy, just sticks an arm out and pulls him through the window.
Yeah, fair.
It's like clotheslines
Like
him off the
Gandalf
bike.
Sam through the window in the start of Lord of the Rings.
Pretty much. Gangl wasn't the man that they'd been looking for, but he was the man they needed. Gangl immediately acted, driving out in his Kubelwagen, which is that traditional German officer car you see.
Yeah, that one.
With a big white flag, the Czech cook, and his driver to go find the Americans. It sounds like an episode of Allo Allo.
I am just imagining this cook just has like a chef hat on and a frying pan with some eggs, just going all this time.
Oh, the hat's fluttering in the breeze.
Oh, totally.
He's got his frying pan on his back.
And find the Americans, they did. Gangl, the cook, and his driver drove cross-country and straight into a column of Sherman M4A3E8 tanks, better known as the Sherman Easy-8s. The column took Gangl, listened to what he had to say, brought him back to their commanding officer. Our third and final key figure. That is our final man.
Why are all these pictures so tiny?
I don't know. So this man has been described as a cigar-chomping, hard-drinking person who very much was enjoying the war. Soon to be Captain John C. Lee Jr., known as Jack to his friends.
Not to ruin
he
this
was
picture,
a
does he have a
stocky-
chub on?
Maybe. He was a stocky 27-year-old from
That's
Norwich,
just really high to
New
That's just where
York.
God. That's just where high to cigars and brandy. It's fine.
Indeed. Just gives you a big old chub. That is not medical advice. Do not take that.
No, I'm taking
Do
the
not
sample.
take the big old chub.
John C. Lee Jr., who I'll just be calling Lee for the rest of this, strapping 27-year-old from Norwich, New York. He led B Company of the 23rd Armored Battalion, and he had a plan. After getting confirmation from command, he and Gangl took the Kubelwagen all the way to Itter in civilian clothes and reconnoitred the area personally. So he just gets into civilian clothes with Gangl, just drives into Itter, surrounded by SS people, and just has a look.
Suspicious. I'm not suspicious of that because they're driving the typical not German officer car as pure civilians, right?
Well, I'm assuming Gangl was in his officer armor, but Lee would have been in civilian clothing,
Okay, yeah, fair.
presumably.
Which means they could legally shoot him as a spy. Well, not legally, but you know what I mean.
Lee and Gangl did some recontour, looked at the castle, and was like, well, we can't get in there right now. Pretty much, almost already, the castle was being besieged. It hadn't been said, but, you know, it looked like the SS were about to go in.
They're hustling around the place.
They were hustling around the place. Quite clearly awaiting relief. Gangl and Lee decided that they would set the prisoners free. So upon his return, Lee boldly proclaimed to his men that they were going on a rescue mission. His men were not thrilled.
Yeah, I was gonna say, fucking hell. Yeah, he sounds like. I mean, I'm sure he's a perfectly nice guy, but sounds like a total arsehole to work for.
Yeah, the French people were not happy with him. So, for his volunteer mission, Lee formed an ad hoc task force of 7 Sherman Easy-8s, 14 US soldiers, some of whom were part of the All-African D Company, which I thought was pretty cool. Gangl, obviously, his driver, 10 former German artillerymen, presumably the cook, and, of course, the Kubelwagen, which every time I say it is so much fun.
He loves that Kubelwagen.
Or should we take the
Kubelwagen.
Kubelwagen?
Why would we not? It's the Kubelwagen. Sorry.
Unfortunately for Lee, trouble struck pretty much immediately when only 4 Shermans were able to cross a badly constructed wooden bridge at the next river. So already they haven't even got to Virgil, and they had to leave 3 Shermans behind. However, they
That's
reached
a bit of a
Virgil.
setback.
It is. They've reached Virgil without any other incident. The Austrian resistance welcoming them in. Gangle got whatever men he could get from the Austrian resistance and the people he'd left there. In exchange, Lee said, "You know what? We'll leave 2 more tanks behind just in case the SS come along. So you guys can use it." So he ends up setting off with only 2 tanks in hand: Boschbuster and the Besotted Jenny, which are just great tank names.
That's great.
Boschbuster sounds like something you put in your washing machine or your dishwasher.
It's
Bash the
B-O...
Bosch.
God, it's B-O-S-C-H, isn't it? For
Bash the
German
Bosch
stuff,
and the
isn't it?
dirt is gone.
Bish bash bosh.
Oh,
Oh.
Well, what was the other one? The beautiful
The
Jenny or
Besotted
something?
Jenny.
the Besotted
Besotted
Jenny,
Jenny. Besotted.
which is Lee's personal tank.
Of course it is.
Lee drove hard for Castle Itter, fully aware that delaying any more than they had to was probably not going to be good. Cautious, however, of SS patrols, they ended up arriving at another bridge across the next river, realised that it was the only route out from the direction they were coming back to friendly territory, and it had also been rigged to blow up. So Lee prudently decided it would be a good idea to leave someone behind to guard it. So they left Boschbuster behind to guard the way out. And Lee took Jenny and charged on with the infantry.
Oh, this has
In
gone
the
awful.
woods- It's not going great. They started with 7 tanks. They've now got 1.
They now have 1.
In the woods outside Itter, Lee smacked right into an SS blockade, who the SS, upon seeing Jenny, fucking booked it into the woods. Shit,
Right,
there's a
I
tank.
assume they
Run.
don't have a tank, so that's fair
They
enough.
don't have a tank, no. They'll have something later. The SS fled in terror, and Lee ploughed on. Soon, Jenny, Lee, Gangle, and their troops arrived in Castle Itter. The French VIPs were not disgruntled, disappointed is the word at the minimal numbers. They were expecting an armoured column, which, they would have got had
Fuck
other
you,
stuff
you're
not
not
got in the
worth
way.
Instead, they got attacking some guys.
They were disappointed, and even less happy about the brash and crude Lee. I think Renault especially was not a fan of him at all. But on the evening of May 4th, a U.S. Army captain, a Waffen SS officer, a Waffen even? A Waffen?
Yeah. Waffen.
A Waffen!
Waffen, bet.
A U.S. Army captain, a Waffen SS officer, a German major, and several former French politicians and officers made a plan to defend a medieval castle and French VIPs from loyal Nazi SS death groups.
Wait, is that Waffen or is that Wehrmacht?
Waffen.
Oh, Waffen, no.
So they had
Fair
they had an SS officer from the SS Waffen and Gangle,
Oh,
who was a
yeah,
German
there you go.
Wehrmacht major.
Yeah, you go. Cool, no problem.
With Jenny overlooking the road, they opted to dig in and hold out for reinforcements. In the early hours of May 5th, the SS launched a series of probing attacks for weaknesses. The walls were pummeled by machine gun fire, tracer rounds illuminating the area of Jenny's 50 cal, which completely shredded into the tree line. The MG42s dueled with Jenny for what seemed like several hours, while the SS troops attempted to scale the western walls with grappling hooks. Not sure where they found grappling hooks, but they found them.
They're about the place. In forests,
I'm imagining just meat hooks that they got from a local butcher. Which is kind of more terrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're barbed.
Especially if there's still meat on the end.
But you need something.
Just a big old piece of beef.
You
I
need
was
something to
thinking
weigh
about
it
that,
down
this
on the other
fucking
side.
Cold
Just
We
a-
use this
hot
cow
dog
as a
beef.
counterweight.
Counterweight.
A counterweight.
Uh,
So the battle for Castle Itter had begun. The Americans set up in the gatehouse, Germans on the walls, and the VIPs in the keep. Lee and Schrader took up point on one of the tall towers, acting as their command post. And come morning, the probing attacks had kind of gone all night. Come morning, Schrader spotted a group of SS trucks and anti-tank guns moving up. The defenders had to them one tank, rifles, and SMGs. Regardless, they opened up on the oncoming SS. At 8:30, things got real, shall we say. With Jenny at the gates, 100 to 150 SS troops opened fire. They lined up a 20mm anti-aircraft cannon and an 88mm anti-tank gun at the northwestern wall and proceeded to bombard the keep. They completely shattered parts of the tower with the 88mm. The AA cannon shredded holes in the walls. But the defenders fought on regardless, but soon ammo was running low, and Jenny's machine guns were entirely depleted at this point. The 50 cal had been going all night.
Yeah, I don't the idea of the probing attacks, though. Just like, how did the attacks go? Still attacks, sir. Down.
Shall we get the anti-tank rifle? No, fire that at the wall.
So it's not an anti-wall rifle. Shut up!
We are firing the anti-wall rifle at the tank. Trust me.
So what about the artillery? Well, what do you think we do about the artillery? Do you see any artillery in this castle?
Get the anti-artillery rifle. Oh wait, we don't have one of those. Okay. Sorry, I just want to go on that little tangent for a minute. 50 cal been going all night.
Yeah. So they depleted Jenny's machine guns. They at this point they had to make every bullet count until either they all died or the SS surrendered. But that seemed like a fantasy, as the 88mm shelled Jenny, igniting the engine and then hitting Jenny with a second shell, which obliterated her into a fiery mess, as the crew fortunately leapt to safety. This was all seen by Schrader from the tower. This is literally bird's eye view of Jenny getting blown up.
How many's in a crew of an M8 or whatever they were?
There were 3 or 4 in it at the time. They had the 2 guys on the machine guns and the radio operator. So desperate, even the French VIPs took up spots on the wall to fight back against the Germans. Just a weird scenario where you have French people who all hate each other fighting alongside Germans who they hate, with Americans who also hate the Germans and aren't too fond of the French. It's a very weird scenario.
No, I think I knew of that battle because of that reason, I think.
And they were fighting side by side in a last-ditch effort to hold out. In the gatehouse, the elderly Paul Renault, the elderly politician dude, was putting down covering fire with an MP40 he had found. So there's just this late 60, 70-year-old guy in the gatehouse just with an MP40 just unloading.
With a German submachine gun that he just picked up off the floor.
He just found it. He was just going ham with it, which is just a great image. However, a sniper...
I'm imagining the tennis player just lobbing tennis balls down from the battlements. Giving them
he obviously had more than just throwing them up and batting them.
He probably would have been...
He had an unlimited supply of tennis balls and a really good racket.
He probably would have been 66 if I'm looking at his name right. Jesus Christ.
He was in his late 60s, just going to town. Unfortunately, a sniper clocked him, as did Gangle, who dived to save the elderly statesman. The sniper's bullet took Gangle in the head, and he was killed dead before he hit the ground.
Yeah.
But Renault was saved.
I wanted Gangle to live more than I wanted the Frenchman to live.
Yeah.
And the American.
Yeah, Gangle is like the hero of this story. Things were looking bleak. The 88mm kept up the bombardment. The SS completely swarming the area, with Jenny's radio obviously getting blown up when Jenny got destroyed. Lee used the castle's telephone to call for reinforcements, which was still working.
Why didn't he call for reinforcements earlier? He has
So-
2 tanks in the next village over.
So Lee had been using the radio up to that point, and they had been in contact with some Americans in the area, but they didn't know how far the Americans were, and also the radio was only short range. Obviously, they'd forgotten about the phone. He was relaying and describing the enemy positions to nearby Americans who had made it to the town of Virgil when another shell hit and killed the line. At a loss of what to do, Lee accepted the offer of our famous tennis player, Jean Barotre, who leapt the castle wall in a bid to find the Americans. They then pulled back into the keep. Everyone else pulled back into the keep right as the SS obliterated the gatehouse. So the gatehouse is gone now. The impenetrable gatehouse is no longer impenetrable.
It's been penetrated.
I just love the
It's been
idea of
penetrated.
Lee on the other end, on the end of the phone. Just like, yeah, just aim for the castle. What do you mean, what castle? It's the only one around.
Lee watched in horror from the tower as the 88mm gun was pulled up to the keep doors and aimed directly at it. Meanwhile, the madman, Jean Barotte, had sprinted through a gauntlet of SS machine gun nests, danced around their strong points, and just run hell for leather and went straight into elements of the 142nd Infantry, who were the Americans that had made it to Virgil. They'd made it to Virgil because of our Yugoslavian friend, Kukovic, whose
On the
efforts
bike,
had
yeah?
not been in vain. He had actually managed to find a guy called John T. Kramer, who had been in Innsbruck, who had disobeyed orders to not stage operations outside of his jurisdiction. So obviously the area was split up into American armies, and John Kramer was like, well, no, we've got to go and help these guys. And the US Army Command, well, no, you can't take your forces into there. So Kramer didn't take his forces, he took himself, and then just picked up forces along the way.
That's the lovely thing. If you're if you're high enough rank, you can just go, right, you're a mate. I'm just like, oh, okay.
So he managed to wrangle himself a column of M10 Wolverine tank destroyers and set off for Casaletta.
Now you just make me think of just a tank destroyer with a lasso around it.
Get out, boy! Just managed to wrangle some destroyers.
No, Wolverine's a lovely tank destroyer. It's like, pretty.
This was actually all happening earlier on May 4th. So it's May 5th currently. This was happening on May 4th. Unfortunately, the roads were clogged with refugees, and a heavy shell barrage basically meant they couldn't get to Virgil until the morning of May 5th, when the attack was already happening. And Kramer had been the guy who had been on the phone to Lee when it was cut. And he was just like, whatever, we're going straight to Itter. We're going now. So Jean Barotre slammed straight into him,
That is a
explained
tank.
what was happening, demanded a US Army uniform, got it, and then went straight back with them, leading the reinforcements.
Look, just give me some grenades and a racket. I know what I'm doing.
Oh, that is a beautiful image. That's an
Just run
absolutely
straight down
beautiful
the
image.
88mm.
Oh,
That's
it
what
was
I want
this.
That is a
It
nice
was a-
tank.
It was at this point that Lee watched the 88mm prepare to fire, when Schrader cried out in elation from the ramparts that he could see the Americans, with Boschbuster at its head, and they just tore the SS to shreds with the machine guns.
Meanwhile, Bossbuster, where the fuck have you been? Why can't you hear anti-fucking tank fire from the next town over? What the fuck have you been doing? Sorry.
In Boschbuster's defense, they had direct orders to hold the bridge as an escape route.
Sure, I get that, but sure a lot of explosions over there.
Well, Lee's initial plan was to get there and then just take the prisoners out. But because of the volume of prisoners and the special nature of them, they couldn't risk just taking them out, and they obviously didn't have any trucks
with a
or
tennis
anything.
player hanging on the outside of a tank.
So at 4 p.m. on May 5th, 1945, the battle for Castle Itter ended. 2 days later, victory was declared in Europe.
Lovely.
In the aftermath of the battle, over 100. So out of a force of 150 SS troops, 100 of them were taken prisoner. So not that many. Presumably the rest were killed, but it's an unknown number of dead SS. Miraculously, all the French VIPs and prisoners survived. There was a photographer in the reinforcements on hand to film the aftermath and take pictures of them. And there's a ton of film out there of all the French, like both French prime ministers, the generals, who were, I think they had their wives in prison with them, just sat chatting outside Castle Itter and just having their picture taken.
Yeah.
The mixed American German force only suffered 4 wounded. Major Joseph Sepp Gangel was the only fatality on their side. Oh, and Jenny, if you count the tank.
I don't.
I don't.
The crew were fine, so we don't count the
crew
tank.
Were fine. Which is it's so sad because Gangel was crucial and genuinely seemed like a really nice guy.
I mean, look at that smile.
He's just a happy guy who in the end did what was right. The battle for Castle Itter, known as the Last Battle, has gone down as one of the strangest battles in history, mainly because you had US, German, SS troops and officers fighting loyal Nazi SS in a medieval castle. But it wasn't until recently that it left obscurity. Thanks in part, I think, to the Sabaton song, which is where I got the idea for this one.
All right.
It's where I get most of my war stories from.
What many don't realize is how decisive the battle was, though, because if any or all of the French VIPs had died, it would have changed the course of French political history, because Renault went on to serve in multiple French cabinets after this, as well as the Rochelle guy was like a key player on the right wing of France. Like, you wouldn't know it until you looked into it, just how pivotal winning and saving these prisoners was.
Yeah. The French tennis opens would never be the same.
It would not be the same. Jean Varosser is one of my favourite guys in history. The battle for Castle Itter is the only time in World War II where US and German forces fought on the same side. John Lee, who was made captain for his actions, earning the Distinguished Service Cross, was asked his thoughts on the battle later in life. His answer? Well, it was just the darndest thing.
Is that literally all he said?
That sounds about right.
That's literally all he said.
That's an old-retired American war hero for you. That's it.
So, it's surprisingly hard to find any stuff on John Lee, as same with Kurt Schrader. But Joseph Gangel, despite being a German, has been named an Austrian national hero for his actions. He was buried in Virgil, where you can find a tombstone dedicated to him, telling you what he did, as well as having a street named after him. As I said, Castle Itter was leased by the German government in 1940. So for the 3 years before it was made part of the Dachau concentration camp, it was used as the headquarters for Hitler's anti-tobacco campaign.
I mean,
and
3 years,
as I found out recently, there is actually, because this surprised me that there's never actually been a motion picture about this. But there is actually, apparently, there's one in pre-production since 2018. So fingers crossed, we're going to be seeing a movie about this in the future.
That'd be interesting.
And that is the battle for Castle Itter, the strangest battle in World War II.
You can look at the spoiler image now.
Yeah.
Christ. Can't you put that in the... Let's put that in the video. Yeah, all right.
That's really good. That's fantastic.
Something... when I was just did a Google image search for images of the castle, one of the results there was a Castle Itter board game.
Yeah, there is a Castle Itter board game.
Why? Okay.
Is apparently a thing.
I'm just going to put in a picture of the Sherman Easy 8. I want to find a decent one. We'll do that one, yeah. We'll do the oldie image.
I wonder if it's the one I'm looking at.
Who knows? It's a small one, unfortunately.
It's
obviously
not the same one.
Obviously, plenty of pictures out there. We'll no doubt put up some pictures.
I was looking at that one.
Yeah, we'll no doubt put up pictures of these in YouTube's, and for those of you listening on podcast, There'll be pictures. Probably we'll get some up on the Twitter feed in tandem with when this episode goes out. But yeah, I'm up this Fact Week. As I just said, we do now have a Twitter. It is Fact versus Fiction or FVS official.
F versus F official. All
F
one
versus
word.
F, all one word. You can tweet at us there, or do whatever it
Tell
is
us
you do
all
on
the
the
things that we
Twitters.
said wrong.
Yeah,
Yeah.
please do
all the
correct
names we
us.
mispronounced.
And as usual, Toms, do you want to plug all your jazz? Plug me a jazz.
Unplug that, Jazz. Back to Chicago, where we started this show.
Ah, yes,
Well, we
Detroit the
started
musical.
and immediately left.
Detroit. I mean, that's what you do in Chicago, right?
Yeah, it's cold. It's got lobsters and
Very
okay
windy.
food and high murder rate. That's about it.
What more can you ask?
Got a good fantasy fiction series. set there.
Anyway,
It's all right.
Dish
Corby and
pizzas.
Tom, do you want to plug the other relevant stuff?
Yeah, Corby.
Oh wow, I'm going first. That makes a
Yep.
change. I have a YouTube channel of which you can find in the description wherever you're watching. I also have a Twitter which is @GaiusNix. That's GUIAS. Is there an underscore? There isn't. But there is an underscore in my Twitch channel, which I very occasionally stream on. Most recent thing I've been streaming is my first playthrough of Dark Souls. So
Is that going to be relevant based on when this comes out?
it might be. I don't know how quickly I'm going to get through it. It was the remastered one, so
Touche.
it's got all the DLC.
Oh God, yeah, you're gonna be there for a while.
But yeah, there's that, and that's all I have.
I have a Twitter which is @randomjot, and I have a YouTube page which is Tom8Jordan or youtube.com/randomjot, where I basically put up funny videos, vlogs, occasional sketches. At time of recording, I just put up a video which is a logo design tutorial, which may have a different outcome than the one you expect when you go into it.
Oh God.
Hail Santa.
And obviously, as I say, if you're struggling to find either of the Tom's Twitter feeds, you will be able to find them through the
All of that is
F
in
versus
the-
F
There it-
official,
They're also in the
Feed notes.
description.
and
or
they'll be in the
podcast
description.
notes.
Oh, John, do you want to take us out?
Yeah, sure. Just scroll up to most of it.
With a rifle.
Bang!
I mean, if good. Anyway,
The only weapon he doesn't own.
where did the air rifle go? No, it's fine. Anyway.
Mum,
General,
the air
that's a-
rifle's gone walkabout again.
That's a problem for later, John. No, anyway, and probably everyone else in the area. No, there was a thing that happened in the in the Civil War where basically Mark Twain and a couple of his basic buddies, they decided to join the Confederate Army. They didn't join officially. They basically just made up their own unit and hung out in the woods and got drunk. And just went on for a couple of words till they heard that the Union Army was advancing. Then they quit their made-up unit and basically just went home. A similar thing happened with another famous person, Ernest Hemingway in World War II. They were starting some down the eastern coast of the US as U-boats. He heard there was one off Key West and decided he should hunt it down. He and a couple of buddies load up a boat
Hunt
with
it
just
down?
hunt down a U-boat. It'll be fine. They literally got a boat. Him and a couple of mates got a boat, put lots of just weapons, just put lots of guns and booze in it. And
It sounds like a
literally just
Joffrey
went to go
Spicer
find-
Simpson tactic.
Yeah, they went to go find it, and they basically came home because they ran out of alcohol after a while. He got drank too much and said, "This is useless. We're going home," and that's
Oh,
what happened.
Fantastic.
When authors go to war.
When authors go to war.
Oh.
I'm just,
Well.
didn't he actually hunt? Or was that
he
literally
did.
just made up for fiction?
Did Hemingway write Moby Dick?